All right, so for the last presentation between the happy hour and the alcohol and you guys being able to leave here is I'm actually get to be your speaker and not just your moderator, but to make this panel or this presentation even better, I'm going to invite a good friend of mine up here with me, Pete Brien. Pete Brien is the owner of Brien Water Wells in Hearne, Texas. Actually operates a lot in the Post Oak Savannah Groundwater Conservation District. And this, we're just going to sit up here, kind of go through a conversation that's kind of started back in January of earlier this year. And if you were at the May tag meeting, this conversation kind of started and kind of evolved a little bit. And we're going to try to take it a little bit further, kind of go over a little bit of, what is it that, how drillers interact with GCDs, the challenges that they can or may face with having to deal with different groundwater conservation districts. We'll hear about it, our similar rules and different rules and some of the challenges that may present us. But before I do that, I want Pete to take my place right here real quick. And Pete's not just a driller, but he's also a past president, and he's still a member of the Texas Groundwater Association, which is a drillers organization and other sciences organization. And I'm going to let Pete tell you exactly what it is TGWA is and what they do in their mission.
Thank you, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
My name is Pete Brien. Some of you know me. You may not know me. But anyway, I've been drilling water wells for a long time. And I've been involved in with the state association, TGWA, for a long time, since the 90s, about mid-90s. And anyway, I served as president in the past. I'm a director of the Brazos Valley Groundwater Conservation District. And I look at this as sort of an evolution from my perspective between water well drillers and groundwater districts, quite honestly. And back in 2001, our district was created. Before that, for a while before that, I was involved with the district locally, the Brazos Valley district. And there was something left to be desired in the relationship that we well contractors, water well contractors, and water districts had. The relationship was strained, I think, in the beginning. We wondered why we were going to have to, I'll say, put up with another layer of government that we had to answer to account for, to be involved with. And it's not to say that government's bad. We work with TDLR very well, and we work with groundwater districts very well today, but it started out pretty strained. And I can remember, just for instance, I came on board because I became a director of the groundwater district, but I was, I think, one of the exceptions among us drillers. And I was invited to a meeting once outside our district. Actually, it was in what would be in another district, and to speak on the attributes of groundwater districts. So I went over there and was fairly well prepared. This was pretty early on after I became a director, but I thought I knew the issues pretty well and the opportunities that we could have in the state having groundwater districts. And I met with a lot of adversity. In fact, I felt lucky to get out of town alive before it was over. Dirk mentioned peacemakers today, you may remember. Well, there's two kinds of peacemakers. Of course, he was talking about one promoting peace through goodwill, but the other kind of peacemakers, the kind you used to see in the old Western movies, where the good guy pulled out his peacemaker and got about 10 or 15 shots out of it at the bad guys. And it reminded me of that get-together that I had a long time ago, where there were a lot of folks in the audience that were not interested in listening to the attributes of a groundwater district. But at any rate, we have progressed from there. And I work not all over the state, but as a water well contractor. I work in the Carrizo-Wilcox area, the Sparta, the Queen City, Yawal, Brazos and Colorado River alluviums, the Trinity. You know, I was listening to Chairman Larson this morning, and he talked about the Catahoula. I've drilled a couple of wells in the Catahoula. The Simsboro is a lot better aquifer than the Catahoula, in my opinion. But anyway, that's sort of who I am and what I've been doing. And what was the question now, Bobby?
You're good. So I'll just take off from where you're at. So my question was, you've seen this from two sides. You've seen this from the driller's side. You've seen this from the district side as well. But you mentioned, you walked into the district when the district started and wanted to know, here goes somebody else to tell us what we can and can't do. And I'm glad we had Adam with us earlier this session to let us know, these certain rules that already apply to drillers. But he mentioned one thing in particular: a groundwater conservation district can make some of these rules, even more stricter if they do wish so. And so there's different rules within different districts. And one of the biggest complaints that we got back in January when we were at the Texas Groundwater Association meeting from some of these drillers was, there's so many different rules, and we're the ones that have to tell people, no, they can't do that, but it's not our rules, it's your rules. How come we're the ones that have to take the blunt of that? Maybe, Pete, you could talk a little bit to that or answer that. Like, what does that do or how does that impact your business to have to go from Brazos Valley GCD to drill a well to Post Oak, Savannah, or to Blue Bonnet, or wherever it is that, these different districts that may have different rules? Yeah,
that's something that in the real world that happens, and I'm the first to admit that we have gone into districts before in the past and not be aware that we were working in a district. Just didn't do our homework. And new districts were being formed, and I knew the districts that were immediately around us, but we were not always aware that there was a district. We have realized the error of our ways, and from our company standpoint, we always make sure where we're working and what the district, if there is such a district, what it is, and who should we contact, and make sure we've got a drilling permit and things of that nature. But it can be more than an embarrassment. It can cost you money to drill a well without a drilling permit. So we try to make sure we've got that in hand. Rules can be confusing. Adam does a great job of briefing us on the rules, and we listen to him every year as water well contractors and pump installers. I'm one of those grandfather water well contractors, actually, that I'm old enough that I didn't have to take all of the tests individually. I took tests once upon a time and gained the master status that way. But I want to say I took the test for the pump installers, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's been a long time ago. So, but I don't want to have to take any of it again. So,
there you go.
At any rate, rules are minimums that the state has given us to live by. As Adam mentioned, they can't look at details of every aquifer, every situation all over the state. They broad brush, do a good job of giving us sort of a broad outline of minimum rules. But I'd really like to see water districts with peculiar situations, and I'm not talking about peculiar being funny, I'm talking about peculiar being unique to your area. Come together, talk about rules, pull in Adam if you need to, pull in a water well contractor if you'd like to. I'd always encourage that. Let's talk about commingling issues that you may have locally. Whatever the issues, spacing issues, cone of depression, how far apart should wells be, the rules you've already got in place, and continue to evaluate those and make sure that they're meeting all of the things that you'd like for them to meet.
Yeah. Well, Pete, I'm glad you brought that up. But so one of the other things I wanted to add, I mean, from where you're going to carry that conversation on a little bit is, what can we as GCDs or groundwater conservation districts do to maybe ease up, or not ease up, but make maybe the driller who's the first person who who usually somebody that comes into their district wants to drill a well, the driller is usually the first person they call. It's not always the district. The driller is sometimes the first person they call. So whether we want to believe it or not, they're kind of, in a way, the face of a district sometimes.
Yeah.
So what can we do to help? You said that we've already made strides to make some relationships better. In your eyes, is there something that, we can even carry even further?
Well, I think we are making progress, and I think that it speaks well of both the water well drillers and pump installers with TGWA and the groundwater districts with TAG. So many of us were before the Water Well Drillers Advisory Council just a couple of weeks ago. And we had a better representation between the two of us than any other stakeholder, I think. And I was gratified to see that, because we were almost a team in that effort to present the issue of commingling, which is a rules issue. We've got some basic rules that TDLR gives us, and TCEQ also in public water supply wells, but more needs to be done toward making sure those rules are adhered to, and I just can't say enough to encourage water well drillers and general managers, boards with our groundwater conservation districts working together, because we're out there in every part of the state, just about every part of the state, and we are out there where the wells are going in, and we have the best opportunity to take a look at well construction and make sure it gets done without commingling. Our goal is zero commingling between aquifers and water that is chemically different. It's the only way it's going to work over the long haul. We've seen plenty of water that was once good, and it's not as good anymore because of some past mistakes.
Yeah. Well, put on your TGWA hat for a little bit here. I guess I see you wearing the shirt. Is there something that maybe we as an organization, being tagged, not just GCDs as an individuals, but tagged as GCDs as a whole, tagged, and TGWA, I mean, is there any, possibilities to maybe further educate not just our districts on what drillers do and why they do what they do, but TGWA to kind of continue the education for the drillers to know why the GCDs do what we do and the rules that we have? I mean, do you see any
I see
possibilities for efforts there?
I do see possibilities for more cooperation. We've got a booth out here. Have one of our key people manning that booth, Adeline. Mm-hmm. Go by and see her before you get away. And I would encourage. There are some water districts that are members of TGWA. And I would just encourage more organization-wide cooperation, more getting together, more cooperative effort, and I think we can. Again, the problem that I see today is lack of enforcement, and that is not at all meant to imply that TDLR doesn't do their job. There are just not enough people to cover a state the size of Texas. Water districts have representation, like I said, in all parts of the state. And drillers, if we could work closer together, I think, we could both educate so there's not honest mistakes made, and we could be involved in some investigative support where perhaps people are just disregarding the rules. And I'm talking about my fellow water well drillers when I say that, but I need to look at myself in the mirror. I need to look at my associates in the industry and encourage everybody to follow our rules and to educate ourselves so we don't make some of the mistakes that have been made in the past.
Yeah. So would you encourage some of your water well drillers, I don't know of how many are out here, if there's any, to get involved with GCDs? I mean, like you yourself have, and you've been involved for a while. How has that benefited you, or how has that impacted you? Do you see some value from that in your business?
Well, it gives you I think it broadens your perspective of things, and when you're involved with both organizations, you see both sides of the coin, you realize the need, and you can help be the solution. So I encourage groundwater districts to consider using their local drillers as resources instead of somebody to simply I don't want to say anything demeaning, but let's work together. Let's see if we can solve some of these areas that we have problems with. I do think that it's the season to work together. I think that we've gone from that adversarial relationship to kind of a neutral relationship, and in TGWA leadership, I can tell you that more and more we're talking about cooperative efforts with groundwater districts and with TAG at the state level. So I think that the time is right, and we just need to seize this moment and move that direction.
Yeah. And I'll seize this moment to put a plug in there. I know we as Post Oak Savannah are members of TGWA, and for the last couple of years we've enjoyed the conference, the annual conference y'all put on every January. It's a blast. We feel welcome there every single time. The conversations and the networking opportunities that are there. I would just, again, shameless plug. We're here with GCDs, but to attend, if not just attend, but again, try to figure out ways to build better relationships with the groundwater drillers, because they are the people in the field that are, again, without trying to repeat myself too many times here, but whether you want to believe it or not, or whether they want to believe it or not, they are somebody in your district that is a face that people see because they call them first. They just know they need to drill a well. They call a water well driller. They don't know about a groundwater district all the time. So a well driller is the person that can get them in that door, the person that can introduce them to your groundwater conservation district, and from there open up those doors so that there's good relations between both. So,
Well, I was
so
going to
that
say,
I'll let you
yeah.
close up with any final remarks. I know we're kind of running short, but you have. You know,
we're definitely going to get out of here on time.
Yes.
So we of course get the lion's share of the calls initially. I'd like to have a well drilled, and we give them particulars and pricing and scheduling and so forth, and say, by the way, depending on where their property is, this is the groundwater district that we'll need to get a drilling permit from to do your job, and we'll educate them as required. Some people are totally ignorant of the requirement, but they quickly understand, hey, this is not an infringement on their property rights or anything else. It's just something that will help them as we manage our groundwater resources. And so we put them in touch with the appropriate district. We'll work with the district as required to make sure that we're all on the same page. And that's when it works best.
Absolutely.
And if you want me to wrap up, I'll just
go ahead.
I'll just basically one more time encourage you to work with your local drillers to make some progress on a relationship that can last and be a positive thing. We're all working for the people of Texas together, and I think it'll work best if we work together.
That's a great way to say that.
And one last thing I'll say is, please forgive us for administrative mistakes that we might make along the way, maybe the first time at least. So give us a there's a difference between getting a cookie out of the cookie jar and robbing a bank. So just all of you guys that are in any phase of enforcement, be gentle with us. So thank you very much.
All right. So we'll open up the floor to any questions right here in front.
Well, I don't think any good rule is going to adversely affect any of us. The one problem that exists is the unlicensed guy, or the guy that just flagrantly disregards some significant rule, and competing with that individual can be a problem. An example. Let's say that I think we need to pump cement from the top of the producing zone all the way to surface. Well, that's not a state rule necessarily. But in a given situation, I might recommend that be adopted by a groundwater district because of certain commingling issues that exist locally. My competition, whether it be a licensed competitor or somebody that sneaks in, flies by night, doesn't have a license. When he talks about a job, he's not necessarily going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. And it's going to cost me some business. There's no doubt about it. But that may be touching on what you're asking about. Yeah. There's a financial aspect to it, and that's what I'm in business for, is to make a profit. So support my family. at any rate.
Yeah.
Yes,
Pete, I'm William Gamblin, Pete and I are on the similar boards.
we are.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
But I appreciate CAG, for acknowledging that this opportunity exists. And I don't know if Pete feels the same way, but we've seen the evolution throughout the years of being such an adversarial thing between the drillers and groundwater districts. So now it's starting to come together and say, hey, we can really help each other.
It's a good feeling.
I know. Hopefully. One of the suggestions I might have is, it's just something that, that might work, is just to have in the groundwater district maybe a small advisory group of 2 or 3 drillers or something that are local, just a sounding board or something with the groundwater district.
Billy, I think it's a great idea.
To prove something,
Yeah.
districts can have their own ideas of how that would work. That's maybe an idea.
Like I say, the more we work together, the better both of our jobs are going to be, I think. So,
Absolutely. Appreciate that comment. Yeah, if y'all didn't hear that, I mean, he basically suggested that, use your drillers as possible, advisory to bounce ideas off of them and allow them to come in and give ideas to y'all, to the district. So, any other questions? Seeing none, I call this meeting to order, and y'all can go drink beer.